adding complexity doesn't automatically mean making more money. AKA if you start adding social media and website production to your creative agency, it doesn't automatically mean you're going to make more money.
Explain.
So this is, you know, it's funny. This title is 5 Brutal Lessons I Learned in My First Year of Business. I kept learning this lesson over and over and over and over again. And it was tough. It was really hard. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Wealthy Creative Show. I am your host, Landon Rhodes, joined by
AJ Cruz.
We're talking about 5 brutal lessons that I learned in my first year of business. Man, when you get started running anything, it's like anything that's brand new is automatically going to have a higher level of difficulty because you've never done it before. To expect that you would be good at something the first time trying it is pretty insane. So one, I think this is going to be a really helpful episode for people who are like going through their first year of business right now and are feeling like, why are all these things happening? But also, I think this is going to actually relate to a lot of more people that are their 4th, 5th, 15th year in business as well, because it's a lot of these things you'll see the pattern in them.
I think also like it does a good job of like tearing down the veil of everything's perfect 100% of the time. Yeah. Because I feel like that's what social media is a lot of the time. It's like, here's all my wins and none of my losses. Right. So I'm super excited for this episode.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Number 1, never stop selling. When you're slammed with work, create a wait list and focus on being sales first. So that was a brutal lesson I learned, and I'll kind of like unpack that first. When I was getting started, I was still working a full-time job. So full-time job in sales, and then went to, building my production business at night, Grindstone. And then through that process though, I would meet people and I would be like, okay, I could take them on as a client. I could work with them. And there was a time where I kind of like, I felt like I stopped selling a little bit, and that wasn't the move.
What happened?
Well, when you subconsciously sabotage yourself saying, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do that, I can't do that, and you immediately just like push away the work. You don't create a wait list. You don't find a way to make the deal happen with like other contractors. That can be really dangerous. And that wasn't like something that happened to me a lot, but it was something that I remember doing in the very beginning, where there was these inbound opportunities coming in, but I would basically just be like, okay, I can't do this right now. So I would just shut down. And this is my very first year in business. Now to think that we would do that is just silly, because when you stop selling because you can't do something, that's assuming that you can't ever get help. That's assuming that you could never pull on another contractor, another editor, another person to help you. And so it's more of like a leadership problem, and just a problem around like, it's more of a problem of leadership, and it's also a problem of just expecting more from yourself, I guess. Yeah. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on number 1?
On number 1, never stop selling. I think that some creatives just have a problem starting selling in the first place, you know? And like, I mean that lovingly, but also truthfully, is a lot of the times people go into business and they start their creative business. And like you coach tons of creatives. You've gotten to have conversations with tons of creatives. And a lot of times they'll start their business and it's like, they focus so much on the art. They don't realize that like sales is really the lifeblood of like keeping yourself afloat. And like you teach your students all the time, if they ever want to get to that next level where they're not just making $40,000 a year to make ends meet and pay their bills, right? Like they have to never stop selling. They have to find leads. They have to continue to reach out. They have to continue to market, and they have to stop identifying as just a creative because they're a video business owner,
Right. Yep. You're not just an artist that happens to help people out. Like you're running a business. Yeah. And so you're either going to, and I think that's another key of what we're really getting to, is the undercurrent is like people that are treating their business like a hobby, it will remain a hobby for them. Yeah. So as long as you make it a hobby in year 1, it will stay that way. Absolutely. And it'll keep staying that way from year 1 until year whenever. So that was, if we could actually probably replace number 1 with that, is like, make sure your business isn't just a hobby if you're actually trying to go full time with it. Number 2, I had reactivity leads to losing clients. So especially if you're working with retainer-based clients. We had a bunch of retainers when we first got started because that was how I wanted to structure the organization. And I remember like when I would have a feeling that I was supposed to do something and then I didn't do it. And then I would be in more of like a reactive state of mind to where like I would think about anticipating their needs of like, oh, I think they're probably gonna need help with this, or they might need that post or this picture for that day or something like that. And I would get like more reactive versus proactive. And that led to like lesser client success. It led to ultimately just like clients not being as happy as they possibly could have to like, you know, keep seeing value in the service. Cause it's not just the content. It's not just the fact that they're not doing it. It's the convenience factor for a lot of retainer clients that people work with. So that was another really hard lesson learned because I'm sure we lost several clients because of that and just not being proactive enough in our communication, in our intentionality, that sort of thing.
So I'm curious, like just on that point alone of creatives trying to not be so reactive to certain things happening in their business, like what advice would you give somebody to start taking steps to being more proactive?
I would say understanding first and foremost, like what are their needs? Like what exactly did you promise them? And then what are the ancillary needs, like the areas where you could go in above and beyond and take care of them? Because if you think about it from like a service first perspective and think like, okay, I'm going to take care of this client the best that I know how. And I'm going to just figure out how I can make their life easier. And if you actively take that position every single time that you hop onto a sales call, you hop into a meeting with a client, you do your work, anything, all those little things that can reduce friction help you retain your client longer, for one, but then two, just like helps with, you know, when clients are talking about you in public and they're like, oh man, AJ's awesome. We love working with AJ. Here's why. So I think those are like the main things is how can you be reactive instead of proactive? And that matters a lot when you suck at what you do. Like if you're a bad photographer or videographer and you're not that good yet, you can make up a lot of ground by being an excellent communicator. You can make up a lot of ground by showing up, you know, showing up early and showing up on time and taking care of the client. Cause like, it's not just the work itself, it's how the work is delivered. So if you feel like you're lacking in like the creative side and you're like, I'm not, you know, the top director, not the top, you know, producer in my city, you can make up for that. And I definitely did that. We made up for that in a lot of ways where like, we didn't have as nice of equipment as everybody else. We didn't have like, I mean, we were scrappy, but we also like showed up, took care of our clients, and, you know, people remember you, the way you make them feel. So
you really cared.
Like,
it was like you saw that your clients cared, so you were just like, I'm gonna care more.
Right.
And it showed and it paid off. You know? Yeah,
it's good. Number 3, you don't sell video, you sell what video can do for your client.
It's a good one.
And this actually didn't take me that long to learn. It was a very quick lesson. Because you film a video and then the video does nothing for the client. And then you realize, oh wait, like just because I made a masterpiece or what I would consider a masterpiece for me doesn't necessarily mean that's like the best thing to help the client. Have you ran into this?
I have. It was a good thing I had you as a mentor. So starting my business, like that wasn't something I necessarily led with. I mean, especially being in the wedding space, you know, I always tell clients, especially now, you know, we're not here just to make you a really nice highlight film. We're not here just to film you a cool ceremony video. Like, what's this going to do for you 5, 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, right? So in my business, like in my like industry, in the wedding industry, the reason we're filming it is, you know, as far as our clients say, you know, things for like legacy, our children, grandparents, because they're not always going to be here, family. Like those are the reasons we do it, and those are more compelling reasons to buy rather than just like, I want a cool highlight film for my wedding, right? And so that's kind of how we approach it. I'm curious, like when you did it for Grindstone specifically, how did you approach it? Because you weren't just, I'm assuming you weren't just pitching like, hey, we're going to do X amount of like social media videos for you just for the sake of doing it. Right. How would you pitch it?
I would say it's about staying consistent for them. So they needed a a content engine so that they could stay consistent. So
Yeah.
for clients with podcasts, it's easy. Like, we produce this podcast, then we produce shorts with it. And that's what helps us stay consistent on social media with really high quality, like relevant content.
Yeah.
Clients need the same thing. Business owners need the same thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily everybody needs a podcast, but they need pieces of content that they can put throughout their social media that's actually going to make them relevant. And if they're not sharing like high quality video content in a 2024 world,
Yeah.
they are falling behind their competitors. They are losing ground. And people be like, oh, well, I don't have like an ad budget. It's like, even if you don't have the ad budget for it, have the assets on your website, have the assets on your social, so that when people look you up, you have a sense of legitimacy online. Because it's like, it's this thing first, and then everybody's like glued to their phones. So I think that if you're going to show up as a business owner in 2024, it's pretty tough not to have some sort of like a social presence or video content. So the sale was actually harder 5 years ago because it was relatively, I'm not going to say it was new, but the idea of investing like into short form content, as much as people do it now, like it's super common to invest in short form now.
Yeah.
But back then it wasn't. And we were like cutting edge on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember in 2017, 2018, I was filming short form content with like do you remember like when Gary Vee started doing the caption videos and like the progress bar videos?
Oh,
He had a
yeah.
title and a progress bar.
Yeah.
We followed suit almost immediately after he started doing that at the company I was working at, Trade-Offs, and it crushed. It did really, really well.
Yeah.
We dropped a video every single day. It was called The Morning Minute, and it was talking about the grain markets. And so that's another example of being proactive too. Like for bullet number 2 is we were proactive, and we knew like strategically what was working in the market. So we decided to like lead with that.
Can you read number 3 again for me? I want to hear that point one more time.
Yeah. So you don't sell video, you sell what video can do for your client. And when you're in the production services world, so like if you're on set with a huge crew of people, don't get it twisted. You sell video, right? Like you're there as a cog inside of a machine that sells video. But when you're a video agency owner, you are selling a service that's going to benefit the client near term, long term. So it's a different mindset. And I think that's what happens to like a lot of freelancers is they'll come from the media production world and they're like, okay, I'm a business owner now. Here we go.
Yep.
I'm going to show up and we're going to charge you $40,000 for a video. And then they don't realize like, or even $10,000 for a video. They don't realize like all the different things that agency that they used to work under. Because again, it's the agency who has the relationship with the client or the large production studio. And then you are one of 10, one of 15 people when it comes to production services. And then you have the agency space though. You have the relationship with the client, account executives, and you are dictating the strategy of how that client markets. You're not just looking at this one video asset that people are creating. You're looking at the entire strategy as a whole. So they're selling, like someone that's coming in selling video, they're going to work under that agency. Whereas the agency is selling the end result.
Absolutely.
And that's why they actually get more of the pie is because they're taking more of the responsibility, the ownership of the strategy.
And I think they're also like, just to add on to exactly what you were saying, like they're connecting what they're doing with the why. So like they're also the ones like bridging that gap with the vision too. Whereas like they're just, like you said, they're just the videographer, just like the cog in that process.
And I think that like I've seen people in the freelance world, some of them just like embrace it. And they're like, this is what I do. This is where I want to be. And there's some that want to make the jump into actually being a video business owner, like their own video agency owner. And that is like a rough reality that they're going to have to traverse across, that people are not just buying video. They're buying what video can do for them.
Exactly.
So that was one that I learned really quickly, because I never for a second, I didn't spend any time in video production services world where like I was on set with 30 people or 20 people. I was always one-to-one with the client first. And then we grew that way. So we were a video agency kind of from the get. Anything else on 3? We hit 4.
I think that was good.
Cool.
Let's hit 4.
All right. Number 4, adding complexity doesn't automatically mean making more money. AKA if you start adding social media and website production to your creative agency, doesn't automatically mean you're going to make more money.
Explain. What's
This is, you know, it's funny. This title is 5 Brutal Lessons I Learned in My First Year of Business. I kept learning this lesson over and over and over and over again. And it was tough. It was really hard because when you get good at something, or you have like a knack at something, like I can make websites, I can run social accounts, I can do a lot of those things.
Studios.
I can build studios. Yeah. Like I can do a lot of those things. That doesn't mean I should. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson, several years to learn that lesson, but I started learning it year one, where we started off as a social media agency. And that's where social media agencies were like 5-6 years ago. Like that was a great thing to be in because clients, especially in like blue collar niches, hadn't quite figured out how to like navigate social media and how to like be relevant and cool, yet not embarrass themselves on social media. Cause like there was a great divide. You had people that were doing like nothing on social media, literally dead accounts. Yeah. And then you had people that were investing a lot of money, and then, and I'm talking tens of thousands. So like larger companies. Yeah. But then you had this really cool subset in the middle, and that's who we served. The people that were like right in the middle. They weren't necessarily like, they didn't care about it, but they also weren't going to drop 30 grand a month on their social, right? So you had those people in the middle, and that's who we served. And those folks, we were like, that was our bread and butter, basically industrial service-based businesses. So we started off as social media and video at the same time, but then eventually we started adding on websites. We started doing some like brand stuff, and like we did all of these different things, and we didn't necessarily have the systems or even the deep-rooted expertise to do them excellent. And now, when you start anything, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it from the very beginning. So I'm not going to sit here today and tell you it wasn't, you know, worth a shot, but the thing that I learned over and over and over again from this process is, as I would add more services to our agency and try and become more full service every single day, we would naturally have growing pains. And we would naturally have like complications that would come as a result of growing in new different directions. Because if you're going in one direction, it's a lot easier to predict like where things are going to happen, where things are going to go. But if you start growing in 6 different directions, it's really difficult. So like, for instance, I'll give you like a tactical example. When you're growing in video and you need to upgrade your server, like let's say that you're producing 2, 3, 4 terabytes of content a month. Okay. Well then like, okay, that's a lot of content. That's a lot of editing time. That's a lot of people that are managing a lot of projects. Okay, sweet. So we have that going. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, we're going to do paid ads for a client. Oh, wait, we're going to do organic for a client. Oh, wait, we're going to do website for a client. So now we're not just managing this growing monster on the video side. Now we're having to keep up with the trends on paid media. We're keeping up with the trends on social. And now a website goes down and we don't know how to fix it. So then you have to like divert all of your attention over to the thing that's broken. And like that switching. That's called complexity, and increased complexity doesn't automatically mean increased profit. It definitely does not mean that. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you think that like people add complexity? Like, why do you think do you think they do it on accident? Do you think they do it because they want, like they see the opportunity to like increase their revenue? Do you think it's because they?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I think people do it because they want to increase their revenue, because they see the opportunity in front of them and they think they can do it. Yeah. And they can a lot of times, right? And I'm speaking for myself here because I lived this. And so we did it because we wanted to keep growing and we wanted to keep building a team. And I knew that if we said yes to more things, we get more opportunities to continue to say yes. And I thought that's the direction we wanted to grow the business. And strategically, like that's where we were going. So it's not like it was a mistake necessarily. It's just like, it ended up not being the best path for us to go. And we landed back on video as kind of our bread and butter because we just like got it. Like we were good at it and we had a passion for it. So I think people add complexity because they are sometimes scrambling for cash. And so they're like, okay, I can take this website on, it's $5,000. It's gonna be a lot of work, but I could do it. Or, you know, whatever, however much money it is. And, yeah, that's kind of, and I also think that the landscape of digital agencies changed in the last 6 years too, where like first it was like everyone was like sprinting dead ahead towards full service. Now you have a lot more people that are getting hyper specialized.
Yeah.
And so with those things in mind, the bigger and bigger agencies will usually always become full service, right?
Yeah.
But then like the smaller boutique agencies can be excellent in one area, and that's where we are today with Grindstone.
Totally. What advice would you give to somebody who like, they probably know that they should just like niche down and just like pick one thing and just run with it? Cause like obviously that's the easiest way, or like that's the easiest way to avoid complexity. But like, what advice would you give to somebody who they know that's what they want to do, but they're so stuck in the mindset of being like, but I have to scramble and like I have to do everything to like make ends meet?
Yeah. So if you are constantly in this position where you're lacking the cash flow that you need to make ends meet on your main thing, and let's say your main thing is video, then you're addressing the wrong problem. Like if you're constantly thinking, how can I go get a website to supplement my income so I can keep doing video? It's the wrong, you're addressing the wrong issue. You're addressing a symptom, not the root problem. So like the symptom is we're out of cash flow. The root problem is we're not marketing the video aspect of what we do. We're not actively marketing the video business. And so now these opportunities are passively coming to us. So we're doing them. There's people that will take on the opportunity of, oh, this website's coming in, this video is coming in, whatever. But if you're constantly like just accepting all of those different things, I think that like to an extent, like that can be fine. Not a big deal. You're a creative person. You're going to have like, you're going to want to like expand the boundaries of where you're going. But there is power in focus. There's power in like staying the lane and saying like, no, I'm not going to get distracted by this. I'm going to double down and market the thing that I really want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Point number 5. Final point.
Number 5. All right. Number 5, hire an editor ASAP.
Let's do it.
So, editing takes 3 times longer than shooting does. So I remember coming back from, a big production with Donnie and being able to, I think we talked about this in the previous episode where we went to 7 states in 4 days and filmed 11 videos. And then on top of that, there was 4 recap videos or combo videos that are inside of that. So it was 15 total deliverables. And this is like my first ever big project, first year of business. And I remember the sigh of relief as I brought those drives in to Jacob, and I was like, here you go. And he was excited to like rip into it and make something special out of those pieces of content. But I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, if I had to edit that stuff, there's no way I would have been able to go out and actively keep selling, because all I would have been thinking is like, oh my gosh, I have all this work. How in the world could I go possibly sell more? And I think creatives run into this a lot, and it's not just a first year of business thing. It's a every year of business thing. So the big way to get rid of this is to prioritize hiring an editor so that you can continue to grow and sell the business. And, I mean, this changed your life.
Yeah.
I know this changed your life too. So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, once we started breaking past like 20 weddings a year, and I like knew that I wanted to scale up and start bringing on contractors, there was no way, like you said, there was no way for me to focus on actually selling to go get more weddings, which meant, having time set aside to go to bridal shows, having time set aside to call clients, having time set aside to DM clients, to post social media or post content on social media. And so we had a couple like experiences with bringing on an editor. The first experience was not the greatest, which you can probably hit on this a little bit too, like here in a minute, about how like what you need to look for in an editor. But our first editor just wasn't a good fit. And honestly, part of it was probably a lack on my side of setting expectations the first time. I was new to it, but then this new editor that we've brought on has been absolutely crushing it. And what that's been able to do is we talk about this in a video that we posted about a month back. So if you guys want to go see that, we talk about, the process of what it actually looks like to bring on an editor. But essentially what my job now is, I take on the first 10%, which is, creating proxies, giving them all the assets they need specifically for buttoned up, and then they will handle the middle 80%. And so what they'll do is they'll like literally cut through everything. They'll put the story together, they'll do all the color grading, and then I just have to put that final 10% on, which is like the magic, right? So that might take an hour, 2 hours of my time max. But essentially now what it has done is it's literally cut me down from what would be, almost 2 full working days or 3 full working days of like editing this video down to like an hour a day. So I can finish 9 client videos if I really wanted to in a day, right? Which leaves me the rest of the week to sell.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of my experience with bringing on an editor. It's been a lot of trial and error, but I would love if you could hit on, because you taught me this, but like, what are some things that I guess creatives should look for in an editor so that way they don't make the mistake of just hiring somebody random and then, completely screwing the pooch, right? Like what can they do?
I would say the first thing to look for, like if it's the first time you're outsourcing something.
Yeah.
I don't like to put all the trust in somebody else immediately. So I would probably just look for an editing assistant and say like, hey, I'm going to have you watch over my shoulder as I edit this first time.
Yeah.
And I want to show you exactly what I do and how I do things. And then the second one, I would say, okay, cool. So this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to delegate to you to take care of. And then basically just be able to check in with them on milestones, right? Just like we talk about, and like you should link the video, the bell curve editing system. And so it's up here somewhere.
It's in the card.
It's up here
somewhere up there.
Yeah. So not even so much of like who, but more so like how you're actually delegating it, I would say is even more important, because if they have a baseline, first of all, they have to have a baseline skill of editing, right? They should be editing inside of your ecosystem. If you're in Premiere, they should be in Premiere. They should be quick, right? You shouldn't have to like train them on editing. You should be focused on finding someone who already knows how to edit and say like, how can we work together and do this faster? So that's the first thing. Just make sure they have the actual skill. The second thing is make sure that they are someone who is trainable, coachable, and they're not going to get offended if you tell them like, hey, this wasn't good enough. Yeah. Because that's a big red flag. So if you're looking for somebody, you're considering working with like an editor, and you give them feedback on this one thing and they immediately give you pushback and you're like the owner of the project. Big red flag. Because at the end of the day, they may have a creative difference with you, and there's no problem with someone having creative differences, but ultimately like order matters, and whoever is in charge of the project, the end result to the client, like that ultimately matters. So like, even if, and we ran into this a lot of, even in Grindstone, like even if they would disagree with me, they're like, okay, that's fine. I disagree with you, but we can export it and send it to the client. And like that's like, and I would have to live with that, not them. Right. So, I think just finding somebody that will absolutely strive for greatness. It's not somebody that you should have to poke and prod to like do better every single time, but they're actively looking for ways to be better and be faster, be more efficient, do a better job next time. That's who you look for. And out of all the things though, baseline skill, coachability, and a really positive attitude, they'll crush it.
Baseline skill, coachability,
great attitude, and they'll crush it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And those are 5 brutal lessons we learned in our first year of business.
Awesome. If you guys have anything that you want us to talk about, like drop it in the comments. Landon and I are reading the comments all the time. We see you guys out there. We see you guys out there. But drop it in the comments. We'll stockpile it. We'll make some podcasts about it, film some episodes about it, and deliver that content to you guys. So
deuces.
See you in the next episode. Bye.
That's it.